Okay, mes amis, a very brief shocker du jour. This, I'm almost 100% certain, was at one point alive. And the reason I say that is because of this right here. You say, well, what's that got to do? There's a chunk of mud stuck there. No, it isn't. That, my friends, is where her heart leaked out. That's blood. That's the red blood. It's almost always fluid when it's in a big ball, like in your heart or your lungs. And you can see even here is a pink coming through here, more or less probably from the lung area, breast tissue, so forth. Now, always, moss loves red blood. Look at the dog even up here. Ovid said they turned them into lawn sculptures just for fun, just because they could, just to adorn themselves in their palaces and so forth. You see this green, extremely green? That is indication of red blood collecting in those areas. Now the other white stuff is like from tendon and so forth, which would be, you know, your torso has a lot of tough stuff in the back, but this is from the blood. And the rest is just skin tissue. This here is the more from the thighs. You have a lot of blood that collects in this area. It's very hard to dismiss this. Very, very hard. Here's another one. This is posed and stay there for eternity. This is exactly where I would expect the blood to collect here in her arm. Same thing over here on her shoulder and so forth. They run it down from your arteries. And of course, it's all over here is where the blood drained down into her legs. As far as I'm concerned, that was real at one time. And if you could get up there and look at it real close, you could figure it out absolutely for certain. But they had some way of coating, of hardening everything on the exterior. But the interior is still pretty well intact in most of these that I've found. Now look at that thing in the back. I said, no, they did it just for fun. Ovid talks about it. Look at all these little details. Look at her breast. There's some kind of something happened to it there. And anytime you see the green moss, it's from some bloody intervention of some sort, a cut or just the gravity of the blood, because the blood stays fluid literally forever. It's the craziest thing. You'd expect it just the opposite, but no. Okay, I've talked about Ovid many, many, many times. He wrote in the time of Julius Caesar about all of the stories that they talked about turning creatures into stone. And it was the biggest, most important thing in his 12,000 lines. The first two lines of book 1, he wrote 15 books. Line 1 and 2. Ovid brings up this metamorphosis, which means morphing, changing. In the opening lines, in nova fert animus mutatas dicere formas corpora, I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. Accompanying this theme is often violence inflicted upon the victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape. They did it for fun. And then he says, then they go on about, oh, he didn't really mean it. Well, he did. And he said there is a great variety among the types of transformations. Whoops. There is a great variety among the types of transformations that take place. They can go from humans to inanimate objects like statues and so forth, or into constellations, into animals, into plants, from animals and ants and funguses and mushrooms into humans, from one sex to another. You turn it to hyenas, from one color to another, they turn into pebbles, and it is the most important thing in all of his gigantic work, which was these 15 books. And he started with all of the ancient texts, 250 myth stories. Book 1 is the creation of the earth, the creation. How did it all start? Ages of mankind. We all heard about that, the flood, the great flood. We all heard about that. Deucalion, who was Noah. And in the ancient Greek, stuff, and the Prometheus was Noah's father. So it's a little bit, you know, you got Greek and you got Roman, they sort of mix together. So you got a lot of, they confirm each other, but in sort of a different language. That's basically all. And a little twist here, a twist there, but virtually everything aligns with the Roman and the Greek as far as I'm concerned. And it comes down to Mars and Venus and all of Jupiter and Europa. All of these are gods. These are gods. They're not just planets and moons and so forth. They're gods in this scenario. Hercules, you know, the Cyclopses. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And he finally gets into, you know, Troy and so forth, the fall of Troy and, you know, Helen of Troy and all that stuff, all the way down to Julius Caesar, who they claim turned into a god. Is that possible? I don't know. But they deified him as a god. Now, something I want to speak about is that Ovid wrote at the time of Julius Caesar. Now, Julius Caesar was declared a god after he died, 2 years, well, after he was assassinated, 2 years after the Senate of Rome said he is a god. He was a god. Now, I try to say to myself, wow, all these guys got together and made him a god? They just said, well, the guy's a god? Well, let's think about what they were thinking at that time, because it changes everything if you put yourself into their time frame and their mindset, because they knew there were gods here. They weren't that far removed. That's 2,000, couple hundred years ago, 2,200 or so years ago. So at that time, they still did know, because Pliny had gone through the entire Roman Empire and categorized and cataloged literally everything. The guy was absolutely stunning at the detail, and he had all of the stories of all these people. And there were dog-headed people living in certain places, giants in the other places, and monsters over here, and dragons over here. And he dedicated his life, I forget what the name of it was, a big universal work of everything that they discovered on their conquest, the barbarians and everything, people living up in, absolutely stunning stuff. Four-legged humans, dogs with human heads. Now, at that point in time, a couple thousand years ago, you wipe things out that you don't like. And I think that's what happened. It just got all these things that were just so odd. Once they moved in and they said, hey, whoa, these things are crazy. And they just wiped them out. So, and then at that point, it just got pushed off the table, just like now. Academia doesn't want to know anything about giants. They're absolutely for certain they were here. And not that long ago, now that I'm finding out. Well, absolutely not that long ago, if you take into what they say, millions of years, absolutely not. And the Romans knew this as well. So they deified him. They said, well, he was a god. He was one of those guys. He came down here as a god, just like Zeus did, Jupiter. He would come down as Zeus in a human form. Just like the things I just showed you, these crazy things. They were huge, they were big, but they were still human, and they were pretty hot, these chicks down there. That's why they came down. They'd party up and have sex parties, and that's what happened. Now that's her heart bleeding out. And I have so many examples of this. Well, even Egyptians did the same thing. Let me show you an Egyptian statue. Hold on. Okay, this very strange weathering. I guess so. This was a big, big statue. I'm not sure how tall it was, but it was good size, because these are the rib bones. You see that? And that's the guy's lung. I think that was about as long as, maybe, I don't know how long it was, forget about it. But these things were absolutely gigantic. Now, it's laying down somewhere in Egypt, and this side broke off. And this is the guy's lung. Here's his alveoli of the lung and everything. You can see some red over here. That's the bones. That's the size of these bones. Now, that's not even big. I don't know how big those were. Those bones were maybe this big around. I don't know. But that's not big. I got arteries that big. You want to see one? Hold on. All right, you see this? That's an artery. All right, what I'm going to show you in a second is this. That's an artery. That's the spot right there. You got to put it in a microscope to see it well. This is still packed with blood. I just put a little water on it. Boy, these things stink when they get wet. You can smell the blood. Look at the size of that. That's the guy's artery. Now, even if, think of this, think of that, the size of your rib bone is not that big. You could, this would be, I mean, just think about the size of it. That's an artery. Now, when we went back to the thing in Egypt, where'd that guy go? Here he is. Those are his rib bones. Now, this would be bigger than that, I'm sure. Or maybe they're about the same size, but your rib bone is nowhere near that big. This thing was absolutely enormous compared to average human being. Let's just go with that. By the way, that artery was sent to me by my good friend Greg Morrison, and he also sent me this dragon scale. He's got the most incredible stuff, and this has blood going into it here, and it has blood coming out right over there. And this thing was like glued in here like this and latched in with that little tab, held in like this, and then there must have been a whole batch of them. It must have been from a very good sized lizard. Think of the size of that scale. They say that right now, somebody sent something in to me, says, they come exactly the same. They see them exactly the same now, only little tiny things. And that's where the blood started here and over here. There's always an in and out. All right, there's one right there, and that one right there. You can see it in a microscope very, very clearly. And you see all these lines? Look at this, hold on. I have so much stuff. I'm going to cut it a little close today because there's just too much stuff to go over. I don't know if you can see those or not, but those are the kind of banding you see. And I think they started out a lot of times with these and ended up with a pyramid after they fixed up the outside. Because they got all passages running through them. That's what this is. This is blood. In the microscope, you can see absolutely no question whatsoever. And this is where the blood comes out. Absolutely no question whatsoever. I know this stuff inside now. This was in some kind of creature's body. I don't know what it was. But I think they took some of this stuff just like this and made the pyramids, just faced them off. I know they faced them off because I've seen the facing on them. And they did the same thing on the facing of some of the pyramids. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, as they did down in Peru and Bolivia and all down in there. They took chunks of creatures' bodies and had the bumps on them, and they put them in the walls. Those are those little bumps. And those little bumps, I know what they are too, and they are part of the anatomy of the body. Right? I show this stuff in extreme detail. And Greg, thank you, my good friend, Greg sent me other stuff too. He sent me a feather that's like 3 inches thick. And he was right there, a huge pile of them. He's got some amazing stuff down there, but everybody does, and they just pass by it every day, and it just doesn't mean anything. It's just like when you pick up a rock like this, and you say, well, it's just a rock. No, once you look at it, you say, no, that's the foot of a creature we have no idea what it's from. And there's where the tibia comes down. That's the big bone, comes straight down from your knee, boom, and then there's a secondary bone that comes down. It sits right in here and was glued in here. It's only glued in by a couple little spots here. And that gives you the ability to move and flex and all that. And so there's a bone here and a bone here, just like we have. But this has a totally different toes set up. Now I drilled a hole right in there, down into where there'd be a ton of blood, because the tips of everything have blood. Tips of your toes and tips of your fingers. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you Stonehenge, and I'm going to show you the anatomy, which it's undeniable. Okay, my friends, a new term in medicine is, I'm going to call it the digital terminus. And what is a digital terminus? It's the tips of your fingers and your toes. And they are saturated with blood, and that's how it returns and comes back. It goes from your heart through your whole body, and the whole return, it's called a terminus, an end point a final destination, and then it comes back. All right, the artery comes out and then it comes back. And this is where it happens, in your fingers and your toes. Now, why do I mention this? There's 2 tips here, there's 2 on the side, and there's 2 over here. And they're all the same. They all have that same thing, and I have them in my mud fossils. And I can show you, well, I'll show you one right here. Hold on a second. Here it is right here. Nope. I have to find it. Hold on. All right, this is very hard to see, but there's a pattern in here, this black pattern right there. If you can see it or not, I don't know. But it is of a distal phalanges, and that's a distal, the end of a fingertip. This is what's at the very end, which is called the apical tuft. All right, and then it attaches, it would be right at the very end of this. Now, that is the distal phalanges bone black pattern. This is the vein, and I know that because it blocks off, and this is the artery, and they blow out. Here's where the artery blows out on the side. I showed you there's 2 holes, one here and one here, and then on the end it blow out. This is the digital terminus. It terminates here, and then the capillaries run over here, and it comes back, and these are the veins. Veins clamp off. You see the vein, and there's a vein right there at the end. They clamp off because when you go into the vein coming back, there's no return. Arteries go any way they want. They can squish this way and that way, and any way you want. But veins, once they go this way, there's a valve. You can't go back. And this was a fingertip, and that's that black pattern. Hold on, maybe see it a little better with just the tiniest taste of water. I don't know if you can see that. You got to know how to work with these things. Now here's another one, which is the same as this, only it didn't completely weather out. And here's where the blood is from this one. There's the 2 blood spots, right, and the one at the end. You see it? There's the 2 right there, just like that one, and the one at the end. All right, now this side. These are the vein side over here. Same as this here, exactly the same. And there's one at the end right here that clamped off too. And I drilled a hole into this to get some DNA out of there to get it tested. It's not working out too good. It's just too expensive for an average person like myself, or I have some other people interested, but we just, nobody wants to do it in the first place because it's, well, anyway, I'm not even going to talk about it. That is the fingertip. All right, so that is, and these are big fingertips. I got some, I got one that's 3 feet long. 3 feet long, one fingertip. I mean, I got huge stuff. This is a hair follicle. That's a erector pili muscle attaches here so your hair can go up on end, a little muscle. That's where it invests right there. That's the sebaceous gland, all the gooey stuff that makes your hair easily come out. And here's the vein and artery at the bottom, the root, and that's the width, 2 inches wide. Your hair follicle's not 2 inches wide, I hope. I got meat, I got everything. All of this stuff is mud fossils. We need to get it looked at and for what it is. It's way too long to be leaving this unexamined. And that's what the problem's been. Too much for the average mind to handle. All right, so now that you know that we have 2 at the end, 2 on each side, let me show you something about, and this is the digital terminus, it's going to be called from now on. That's not a name used now. They say it's just capillaries. No, it's the terminus, it's the end point of your blood, and then it turns around and comes back. This is the digital terminus from now on. That's my term for the end tips of your fingers. And this is an interesting place, because like I say, that's the bottleneck. It comes down to the end there and has to turn around and come back. Your fingers and tips of your toes do a pretty important function. It may be more important than that. So what did I do? I smashed my finger to see. I smashed it to see what no, I didn't smash it on purpose. It just happened. But look at that. You see that little dot there? I'm not kidding you. That's that dot right there. That's that dot right at the end. That's the apical tuft that sits right on their fingertip. And that's that dot. Isn't that fabulously crazy? You see the little dot there? Oh man, you can learn something every day just from the most crazy things. Okay, I'm going to leave it at this for today, but you can see this is, they could coat, as I showed you, the statues and all that stuff were just the outside of them. They could do something to do that, but they couldn't change the blood. The blood always stayed moist inside there, as far as I can determine. Because this goes back a couple thousand years. I don't know how long these guys been laying around here. And I think some of them are not that old. I don't know. I really don't know anymore. You see that? That's his thigh. And that's the adipose tissue. The outside layer of tissue is what they could snap and cause it to solidify, as far as I can determine. And they posed them just any way they wanted, as you saw. As you saw in all of this stuff. They posed them any which way they wanted. And I show you this. These are the end of the toes. This terminus is a heel stone. It's called the heel stone. I mean, I'm not kidding you. These are toes. You see the terminus? These are the little terminuses at the end. Just like I showed you the terminuses on these. Only this is just a fingertip. But the toes and fingers are exactly the same. That's where the end blood comes and comes back. And this, nobody understands that. They said, just, how could you possibly not understand this? And there was another one, it was called the twin stone. This Stonehenge is a monument. I know it was all destroyed and they rebuilt it, but at some point it was either just that the guy was dead there, laying there, or they did erect it and make something out of it into like a memorial for a dead giant. But this, I think, is like 450 feet down the road, his feet. Well, that's not out of the range of, a 2-foot hair follicle. And I have other things. I have tendons that are just absolutely enormous. I got them just laying here all over the place. A 3-foot fingertip. Still has a fingernail and a fingerprints on it. DNA was excellent quality. So it's time to look into these things. And I have so much of this stuff, so I'm going to cut it out for today. But you saw everything I had to present. There's no way to deny this stuff. There is no way to deny this. The only way to do this is to just say, I don't want to see it. It's just too much for us. We can't handle it. Because, this is not even, like, this is not a big deal. That's a puppy compared to, let me show you what arteries and veins can really do. This is over in Iceland. Look at that. That is a vein. That is vein blood coming out here. That is the artery side. That's how big these things were. And these people are looking and saying, wow, look at that. I wonder how that happened. Well, I can tell you what, that's red blood running out of there, my good friend. Out of that artery. And that is a vein. That's why it's black. Time to re-examine everything we've been thinking about of our past, for sure, and obviously geology. And all these things, like I'm showing you, that's the hand of Hercules. That's real. I know it's real because I can tell. I can tell almost all these things. All you got to do is send me, I ask you to look at a certain place, and I will tell you if it's real or not. And I can tell you this one is. You see right there? That's the blood leaking out of the fingertip. It's somewhere over here too. You see it? I have a fingertip here somewhere. Hold on. No, I thought I had it. Hold on a second. Alright, I don't know if you can see this or not. But you see, this is a fingertip. Right there, those little tiny holes. That's exactly where this would be. Of course, this is from a big one. But it would be right there. Now, that's where the fingernail is. That's the blood. This died with his fingers like down here. All the transition metals and blood collected here. That's why this isn't like a mud fossil. This is like crystals and metals in here. You see the crystals and stuff? Let me see, hold on. All of this stuff here, that's blood. It died facing down like this. And the blood ran out from the artery side and collected there. And blood is what makes gemstones. It depends on what kind of metals were here, what kind of a gemstone it would be. And you see all those little strappy looking things there? That's the grip skin. Your fingers and toes are tough. It's like you got a heavy duty fabric glove on all the time. But see, this petrified in an exceptional manner. It's almost like opal, basically. It's basically opal. It's facing down this way when he died. And you can even tell the inclination that he died on by where you see he died right about like this. Because this is the flat side now of where the blood is. I don't know if you can see that, I can. So he died about laying like this. If it was straight like this, it would all be done at the end. But it's not. There's a layer, and I don't know if you can see it or not. But it basically comes across like this. So he died laying like this, or she, whoever it happened to be. And there's where the vein and the artery came here. The artery side is over here. And it comes back the vein. And there's the outside tissue. You see it? That's the outside tissue around the guy's finger. This is what happened right here. Exact same thing. That's blood. So is that. And this is going to be some kind of blood at the end of this one too. Some over here. That's the terminus. So don't forget, shocker du jour, Mudfossil University invents a new medical term called the digital terminus. All right, I'm going to go into this so deep because I noticed that the chemistry is just amazing. When you start looking around the world, look at this. I've been looking into the caldera, and they did some research on that recently, and absolutely, wait till you see that, my friends. Wait till you see that. All right, love you all. Stick around for reality. Get a hold of your friends. And watch some Mudfossil University videos together. And sit there and watch and say, what do you, and this guy says, oh, that's nothing. Then you discuss it. But you got to get a group of people that will actually sit down with you. But you got to approach them in the right way, because they'll just say, hey, that's stupid, that's ridiculous. I wouldn't waste my time doing that. And there are things that people approach me with, and I say the same thing. That's stupid, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to waste my time doing it, because there is nothing to see. I don't mean to be nasty to anybody, but I'm a material scientist. I want to see something that I can, and if they say, oh, this doesn't exist, or this is not here, or this everything's CGI, I'm done with that stuff. I want to see something serious. And because I do only serious research. I'm a serious scientist. I'm a scientist. Chad says I'm a scientist. I do more science before breakfast than 90% of these guys do in their entire life. That is blood coming out of there. And I got so much stuff now that I've been for the last couple of years trying to figure out what it means to our existence, our eternity, and I'm getting pretty close on that side too. I'm feeling somewhat comfortable. I was lost. I was just totally lost, my friends. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at today. We'll get into all the deep details about this, and then we'll fire up the microscope. We're going to have a good time. All right, we'll talk later. Thank you all. I love you. Bye.